When City Skylines came out a year and a half ago, it was, I think, November 2023. I had looked forward to that game, and then it released, and it was a pretty buggy, unoptimized game. A lot of people agree that the launch of Cities Skylines II was pretty much a flop. In any case, Cities Skylines I was a successful franchise for 10 years. It picked up where the SimCity franchise left off and just ran with it. And Cities Skylines has been essentially the de facto king of the SimCity style genre of city builders for quite a while. So when Skylines 2 came out, I was looking forward to it. I got a new computer. I was ready for it. And then it turned out that even though I got a high-end system, the game was just not optimized well enough to run well on it. And then, in addition to that, over time, as the dev team worked on the game post-launch, future patches always tended to, in some way, break or invalidate older saves. So I wound up running up against saves that were broken due to bugs or broken due to updates or just too big to run well based on the condition of the game's optimization and what my hardware was capable of supporting. And then, fast forward a year and a half, and the game, a little at a time, got better. The bugs got patched out. The amount of asset diversity in the game improved. There was more you could do with it. And a year and a half in, it's not a perfect game, but it's actually in a much better place than it was more than a year ago when it launched. Now, fast forward to today, I just got a new computer yet again, because I usually like to buy a new computer about every 2 years or so to keep up with the newest technology that's available. And so, having just got a new computer, I'm now able to play that game in a way that pretty much lives up to my expectations that I probably had a year and a half ago. So the place I'm going with this whole little story, as I spent today breaking in a new computer, loading up the game, loading up some of those old saves that were broken, and being able to see them come to life again, and really finish some of these things that I was never able to fully realize until now. It's interesting how in the life cycle of this game, everyone's excited, stoked, happy about a new game coming out. And then, guess what? It's not really living up to expectations, unfortunately. But it does get there. It gets there after a while. It gets there a year and a half later. Another generation of computer hardware later. And then there I am having a pretty good time looking at this game thinking, wow, that's really amazing, It's pretty incredible to see it all come together. But I didn't really get to have that experience right out of the box. It took some time. And I think in life, that's a really good allegory, because sometimes we want things to be instantaneous. We want things to go the way we plan, and then sometimes they don't. And sometimes we do get where we want to go. We do get the blessings that we hoped for. It all does come together in time. It's just, it all comes together at the right time, which isn't necessarily the time which we had in mind. Sometimes you have to take a long, winding, bending road to get to the end result where you're going to wind up in the end. And you think that it's going to be a short little trip, but it actually winds up being a very long journey. Kind of like in Lord of the Rings, there's that adage where people always say, well, why didn't they just fly on the eagles all the way over to Mount Doom and drop the ring in there? Like, why did they have to go on this big, long adventure? Why couldn't they just go there and drop the ring into the pit of fire and be done with it? You know, it's almost like there was this journey in the Lord of the Rings that took years for the heroes probably to make it where they were going. I don't know how long it was, but a very long journey to go a short distance, which you'd think maybe it was, you know, something you could have wrapped up in one day and just been done with it. But that wasn't the point of the adventure. The point was that they had to go on that journey. They had to go on all of those steps along the winding path from the doorstep of the Shire through it all, because it wasn't really about dropping the ring into the fire. It was about the work of improvement and growth in their character as adventurers. So the other thing is, sometimes when we do achieve results, it's because of persistence. It's because every single day you continue to light that candle and keep the flame alive. You continue to put effort into things long after any rational person would have probably given up. You know, and to go back to the City Skylines analogy, you know, over the last year and a half, I built a bunch of builds in Cities Skylines. I've played the game a lot. I think my hour count in that game, somewhere around 1,200 hours. Admittedly, it's not all hours spent sitting there staring at the screen, because it is a game where you can definitely leave it running sometimes when you're not actively sitting in front of the screen playing it, just because, you know, you want to let the simulation run. So it's not necessarily 11 or 1,200 hours sitting in front of the screen, but still, it's one of my top played games, and it's a game that I always come back to, because it's just, you know, it's not perfect, but it's pretty great too. And even though it wasn't perfect, I still got all those hours of experience out of the title, because I've been a city builder fan for as long as I can remember, ever since I was a child, you know. And where I'm going with that is, if you really love something, then you're going to spend time with it. You're going to keep on tinkering with it. You're going to keep on trying to figure out how to make it a little bit better and leave it a little better than you found it. And the casuals, the people who don't really care about it, well, they'll mess around with it until they get frustrated, and then it's going to go on the shelf and they're going to be done with it. But the enthusiasts, the people who are passionate about it, they're going to make it happen. And that's where I think it's important for us to contemplate the difference between things that just get our attention and things that we love. Because if you really care about something, then sometimes you're going to be able to have that staying power to keep on coming back to it, even when it infuriates you, because maybe it doesn't quite do what you wanted it to do. It doesn't work on a basis of your timing. It doesn't live up to your expectations, but it's still something at the end of the day, you'd say that you love it more than anything else. Well, then you're going to be there giving time and energy to it in a way that other people won't. So pick things that you really care about and then commit to the journey, and understand that sometimes that journey is going to be longer than you expect, and you're going to have to go a long distance wandering in the wilderness before you reach the promised land, if you will. But then there's that moment when you realize, you know what, it actually all came together and it was pretty cool. And sometimes when you give up on it and you stop thinking too much about it, then, you know, the door's open. time passes faster than we realize, and sometimes we're closer to a breakthrough than we think we are. But whether it's a game or whether it's our life or a career or a romance or whatever it might be, I think it's important to realize the importance of committing to things that you truly care about, because if all it is, you know, a pretty face or a cool looking trailer for a new release, well, there's a lot of games, dime a dozen, that get your attention, but all it takes is a little bit of friction and you'll lose interest in them. But the ones that you really feel speak to you in a special way, well, those are going to be the ones where even if they're not perfect, you're going to be racking up the hundreds or thousands of hours in them. Pick the things that are worth sinking a lot of time and a lot of energy into, even if they don't necessarily always live up to your standard of excellence. And then accept the fact that sometimes a journey, even if it takes a while, will be worth it in the end. And so even if sometimes it feels like it's a little bit for naught, remember to persevere. Because sometimes if you don't give up and you don't lose courage early, then you get a payoff later on. As always, wherever you find yourself, good luck on the adventure. Till next time, thanks so much for watching.